Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. This is Fahim Niaz. I'm the product manager for Anime Studio. This is lesson 1 of our free 4-part webinars training series that will take you through the steps of creating a basic animation project using Anime Studio. Chad Troftgruben of Incredible Tutorials will be presenting the series. Chad is an expert on creating tutorials and is an avid animator who has in-depth knowledge of Anime Studio. His tutorials have been viewed by thousands, so we're very pleased to have him here. Michi Katniss, as always, will be our moderator here. If you have any questions related to the webinar, please feel free to shoot her a message via the chat functionality or via the Q&A section there. As well, all attendees will be muted, and there will be a Q&A at the very end of the session. And before we get started, the overall lesson, for this lesson, Chad will show you how to create characters using a variety of tools in Anime Studio, and you will learn the functions of drawing the drawing tools, why it's important to work with layers. So let's get started. Chad, I will pass the ball to you now, and you will have access to the screen.
You can learn something here today. So to get started, you'll first, of course, need to open up Anime Studio. And for this particular lesson, you can use Debut if you have that particular version. I'll be using the Pro version, though, and there are some tools here that will benefit everyone if they are using the Pro version. But for this particular lesson, you'll be able to get the basics down with the drawing tools if you are using Debut. Anyway, make sure you have a new document open, and in order to do that, you just go up to your top File menu and go to File and New, just to make sure that you have that new document. The first thing we're going to do is draw the head for the character. So let's come over here to the right on our Layers panel, and you'll see that we have a new layer by default. We can double-click this layer to rename it, and this is a good practice to have because it allows us to organize all of our files. So let's double-click, and then that panel will open up, and we can simply type out a new name. In this case, I will type out head for the name, and just click OK on the bottom of this box. Now, we'll go over here to the left where we see our Tools panel. And you have all sorts of tools, and we'll probably be using at least a few of these for the lesson. But we'll be focusing on the Add Point tool for the start. So click on the Add Point tool. And the Add Point tool basically allows us to place down points on the stage and draw lines according to it. And we can draw straight lines and curved lines, and it allows for a lot of flexibility when drawing out our objects. So once you have that selected, at the top here near your File menu, you'll have 3 options: Auto Weld, Auto Fill, and Sharp Corners. Make sure that Auto Weld and Auto Fill are selected. Then on the right, you have a Style panel. This allows us to adjust the line width, the stroke color, and the fill color. I like to have a line width of 4 to start with, and you can adjust this however you want, but for right now, I'll put in 4. I'll leave the stroke color at black, and for the fill color, I'll just click on that, and you can choose any skin color you want from this color selector. So we'll just try to find something here that works. And that will work. And once you're done, you just click OK. Now, putting your cursor on the stage, we can start, I would say, near the top. That's usually the best bet for the head. And we're going to click and hold down the mouse button and just drag out like this. And once you release, you'll place a point. And you can continue to do this now by going from point to create a head. And now you can always adjust the head once you finish placing the points down. That's one of the great things about the Add Points tool, is it gives you a lot of flexibility. But I'm going to do something a little bit round, and as you can see, sticking out to the right a little bit here, just to kind of give it a little bit of a perspective. Now, before you can close this, you have to connect your last point to the first point on your object. And you'll notice when I do this, the first dot turns green. So all you can do is just release, and now you have filled in the object. So next, let's focus in on the eyes. And if we need to, we can go back later to adjust the shape of the face. But we'll move on to the eyes and then see how everything looks. So we will make a new layer on the Layers panel, which is on the right. So if you click on the New Layer button, which is on the top of the Layers panel, and choose Vector, we can make a new layer. And the vector layer is essentially a drawing layer. That's a good way to think about it. So we'll name this Eyes. And then we will grab the Draw Shape tool, which is near the Add Point tool on our left toolbar. And at the top, you now have some options like you did before with the Add Point tool. We should have Autofill and Auto Stroke checked. And make sure you have the oval option selected. Now coming over here to the Style panel, once again, we will choose a fill color of white. So just click on your color and make it white, and then click the OK button. Now making sure you're still on the eyes layer, we can zoom in on the object. And in order to zoom in, you can use the Zoom In tool on the left side on your toolbar. You'll see it says Zoom under the Workspace section. Or you can use the mouse, the wheel on your mouse, if you have one, to just rotate that and zoom in just like this. And to move the stage around, all you have to do is hold down your right-click button and just move it around like this, so you can always get the view that you want. And alternatively, you can use the hand icon here, the pan icon, to move the stage around as well. But now that we're zoomed in, we can draw the eyes. And first, I'll point out that whenever you draw an oval, if you hold in the Shift key on your keyboard, you're able to draw out a perfect circle. So if we hold in Shift and just click and drag, we can draw out the perfect circle. And you don't have to draw out a perfect circle, but it may help if you just want to create that object in a precise manner. Now we need the second eye, and in order to achieve this, we could do another oval, or I'll show you guys how to copy and paste. In order to copy and paste, make sure that you have the entire object selected, and you'll see this is true when you have the red points indicating that it's selected. And if you don't have that, you can come over here to the left on your toolbar, click the Translate Points tool, and then click on the oval, and that should select the object for you. Once you've done that, go up to Edit, Copy. Or you can use Control-C if you're on a PC, or Command-C if you're on a Mac. And then Edit, Paste, or Control-V, or Command-V. This will paste the object over the existing one, so all you have to do is take that Translate Point tool, which is the one we use to select the object, and just move it over like that. And then, with the Translate Point tool, you can still select other objects, like we can take the first eye and move it closer like that. And you can do other things as well, like let's say if you want to select the second eye with your Translate Point tool, come over here to the left toolbar and select the Scale Points tool. This will allow us to resize the eye, so we could shrink this down ever so slightly if you want, just like that. Since it's a little bit further away from the camera, we might want to do that. And then we can just take the Translate Point tool and adjust a little bit more. Now let's move on to the pupils. I usually put the pupils and the eyes on separate layers because it helps with the animation process later on if you want the character to look around. So we'll make a new layer on the Layers panel, and we'll choose a vector layer just like before. And we can name that Pupils. And then take the Draw Shape tool, which is on the toolbar, and make sure you have Autofill, Auto Stroke selected just like before. And come over here to your Style panel, and this time let's choose a black color. And now, starting with the first eye, I can hold in Shift to create a perfect circle and just draw out a pupil just like that. And now I can copy and paste this as well, or I can just draw out a second one just like that. And of course, with our Translate Points tool on the left toolbar, we can just nudge things up so that they're even and placed right on the face. So now let's create the nose. So we'll make a new layer, vector, and of course we'll name this nose. We'll take the Add Point tool, which of course is on our left toolbar, and this time let's turn Autofill off. So at the top here where you have your options, just click on the Autofill box to deselect it. And we can adjust our fill color in the Style panel in a little bit. So starting right about here, below the eyes, in between the eyes below them, we can just take our Add Point tool and draw down like this. And then just come out like this and keep adding points to create a curved nose. Now, as you can tell, I am drawing a really big nose. I'm not sure why. My cartoon characters have exaggerated features sometimes, and so I can understand if that's not your type of style, but you can adapt what I'm showing you here to your own style. So if you want a smaller nose or if you want a different shaped nose, you can very easily do that with the Add Point tool. So now we need to fill in this nose, but we have a problem because we need to, of course, cover this end here so that it's closed off so that we can fill in the object, because you can only fill in objects that are closed in when it comes to the fill color. So let's zoom in here, and we'll connect this point to this point. So I'll just take the Add Point tool. I can add a little point right here just so we don't mess with our curve right here. So add a point right there, and I'll just come up, add a point there, and add a point here. So now that's selected, and now we can fill in the nose. We'll need the skin color we have from the face, and in order to easily do this, we can take the eyedropper tool, which is located on the left side on our toolbar. It's right under the fill column, and it looks just like an eyedropper. So you click that, and then click on the face. This will now, as you can tell, on your Style panel, give you the fill color and, of course, the right stroke color. It also gives you the right line width from which you're grabbing as well, so it's pretty useful. Now we'll take the Paint Bucket tool, which is also on that toolbar, and it's in the area where your eyedropper is, so just click on that. And you have some options with the Paint Bucket tool. At the top here, near your File menu, you'll see that you have Fill, Stroke, and Both. Select Both. This will allow you to fill in both lines and the fill color for the nose. Now come over here to your nose and just click to fill in. Now, of course, we have an issue here because we have this line coming up, and of course, that's not really attractive for what we're trying to do here. We can use the Hide Line tool to solve this. So right below your Paint Bucket tool is the Hide Edge tool. So we can click that, and all we have to do now is just click on these lines to hide them. So we can click here, and even here if I want to hide those lines. They're still visible to Anime Studio, that is. because if you click on the line again, it brings it back. So it's just a way for you to fill in objects like this and hide the lines at the same time. It's a very useful tool. And finally, we want to add the line here. So we'll go back to our paint bucket tool on the toolbar, select the stroke option that's at the top near our file menu, and just fill that line in like that. So now we have the nose curve up and go down, and you have all that come in place. So we now have the nose. So next, let's work on the mouth. We'll go to our layer panel on the right and make a new layer and choose vector. And we can name it mouth. Kind of scroll down here like this, and we'll use the add point tool once again. The add point tool is our friend after all. And starting right below the nose, and let's make sure that we're kind of lined up with the line going up from the nose. So right about here, we can just put a line down like this, and then over like this to create a smile. And then, starting right about here, let's go down to create the bottom portion of the mouth. Again, it's a very simple mouth, and you can do much more with it if you choose to. I'll take the paint bucket tool now, and we'll choose the stroke option at the top near our file menu. And you just click once to fill in all those lines. So now you have the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and so on. So next, let's draw the ear for the character. We, of course, make a new vector layer on the right side where our layers panel is, and we'll name it ear. Now, taking the eyedropper tool, we can click on the face just to make sure that we have all of our colors and lines set as far as the width is concerned on our style panel. Then we'll grab the draw shape tool, which is the same tool we use to create our eyes. And we can make sure that autofill and auto stroke are selected, as well as the oval tool is selected. And coming right about here, almost lined up with your eyes, maybe a little bit lower, you can just draw out an oval like this. And we can nudge it with our translate point tool if we want to put it out a little bit. Now, we have the same problem we had with the nose. We have this circle coming through. We don't really want that line right there. So what we can do is take the add point tool, zoom in, and add 2 points, one near the top of the ear, just click, and one near the bottom like this. Now, take the line width tool, which is right next to the hide edge tool under the fill column on your left toolbar. It looks kind of like a ramp going up. And let's click on one of the points we just laid down. So I'll click on that top point, and at the top near our file menu, you'll see we have a width area now, and we can adjust the width of this point. So let's put it to 0. You can see now that it tapers off the line, and that's what you're doing. You're basically taking your line from a width of 4 to 0. Let's do the same for the center point. And we can even do the same for the last point we added below here, if you wish. So now, when we look at this, if I just go off this layer momentarily so we can hide these points, you can see that we have a line tapering off, and it's still a little bit hard to tell. So if at any point, if you want to preview what your cartoon is going to look like to your audience, you can go to File, Preview. And when you do this, you'll see that it looks all smooth and nice because you're looking at the vector graphic, how it will appear, and you can see now that the lines taper off at the ears. And I think that's a pretty cool effect. So next, let's focus on the hair. We will make a new layer on our layers panel. and we can name it hair. And we will place it below the ear on the layers panel. You'll notice that I have the ear and then the hair. If your hair is positioned somewhere else on the layers panel, all you have to do is simply hold your mouse button down and move it around. You can move it anywhere you want. Just make sure it's below the ear. So now we'll grab the Add Point tool, which is of course on our left toolbar. And we can put autofill on this time, so we can just select that option at the top. Come over here to the Style panel and choose our fill color. And now you can choose any hair color you want, brown, black, whatever. Since I'm a redhead, yes, I'm a ginger, I guess I will select some red hair. Orangish red hair, I should say. We'll go with that and click OK. So now, zooming in, we'll start near the ear, and I'll just take my Add Point tool and bring a point down like this, or a few points, I should say. I'm going to create a sideburn first. So I'm just going to kind of add some points here to create some hair sticking out like that near the bottom of the sideburn. And I'm just going to keep drawing my points and come up like this. I might have some hair over my eyes, and that's okay. You can do that. Depends on how messy you want your hair. You can just do some different things with your hair if you wish. I'll just do something kind of simple. Bring it over like this, and go OK. And once you click, it'll fill in, and then you can take a look at your hair. Now, of course, if things aren't working quite how you want them, you can always select the Translate Point tool on your left toolbar. And you can come in here and adjust any of the points you want. So if you don't want the hair intersecting with the eye, you can just click that point and move it up to adjust it like that. If you wanted some more hair sticking out at different places, you could always just add in different points of hair going up by adding in more points with your Add Point tool and adjusting with the Translate Point tool accordingly. So you can do all of that. And finally, if you do want the hair sticking up above the ear, you can always do that. Right now I don't have it like that. But if you go over to your Layers panel on the right and just click your hair and move it up, you can put the hair over the ear. Again, it just depends on how you want it to appear. Since my character has big hair, I might just leave it like that because it looks like that works out pretty well. Finally, let's add some eyebrows. So we will click below the hair on our Layers panel and make a new vector layer so we can add the eyebrows right below the hair. And we can name this layer Brows. And then I'll come up here to my Draw Shape tool and select the Rectangle tool at the top. And then come over here to my Style panel. I usually draw black eyebrows, but you could use the hair color that you're using for the eyebrows. It just depends on your taste, but I'll just use black eyebrows for right now. And I'll just draw out a simple rectangle like this. And I can also now copy and paste this and place this on the other side. So with that eyebrow selected, I can go up to Edit and Copy, and then just paste it. I'll use my shortcut command, Control-V, to do that. And I can just nudge it over like this. And if you want to taper off your eyebrows, we can just zoom in here. I can bring one of the points down like this to taper them a little bit. And I can take my Rotate tool as well, which is located right on the left side on your tool panel. And then you can just click and drag the eyebrow to, or the eyebrows, I should say, to kind of skew them in a little bit like that. So now you have your eyebrow set. Now let's move on to the neck. We're done with the face. We can adjust more aspects of the face later on. Actually, looking at this, I may want to adjust the shape of the face, but we'll see if we have time for that at the end of this lesson. So let's move on to the neck. So first, we'll create a new layer on the Layers panel for the neck. Make the neck. And we'll bring that below all of the other layers. So we'll just click and drag and bring that below the head and everything else. Scroll down here a bit. We'll take the eyedropper tool on our left toolbar and just click on the face so that we have the skin color and everything set. And then we can grab the Add Point tool. In this case, with the Add Point tool, I'm going to select the Sharp Corners option at the top bar here. Then, starting right about here on the face, I'll just go down like this, over and up, and then snap to create the neck. And we can always adjust the size of that if need be. It just kind of depends when we're going along here. You'll notice there's a lot of times where you're going to have to adjust as you go along. And I'll be doing that as much as I can here in this lesson. So next, let's focus in on the body. We will make a new layer on the Layers panel, a vector layer, and we'll name it Body or Torso. Now, taking the Add Point tool, we can put Auto Fill and Auto Weld on. And if we come over here now to the fill color on our style, you can choose any type of shirt color that you want. This is going to be very basic at first. You can, of course, add details later on, like buttons, an undershirt, an overshirt, a tie, anything you want, really. But for right now, we'll use a basic solid color, and I will choose green for that color. And click OK. So I'll start right about here, and I'll draw out like this to create the shoulder. Whoops, I actually made a mistake. Let me back up. If you ever make a mistake, if you're drawing and you're wanting to back up, you can always go to Edit and Undo, or Control-Z. You can do this quite a few times to back up your steps. What I forgot to do was I forgot to turn my sharp corners off when I was using the Add Point tool. So just make sure that is turned off. So now, starting there again, we will draw out our points to create the shoulder. And now we'll bring the body down like so. And now at this point you have some creative license because you can create any type of body that you wish. You could create a skinny body, a fat body, a buff body. Just depends on what you want to do. So now once I get to the bottom here, I'm just going to bring my points over like this, and then up like this. And then we'll just come in like that and snap it in. And there might be a couple of adjustments we need to make here or there. Body looks pretty good, and again, we might need to shrink things or adjust things as we go along, but we'll see what it looks like once we put the arms in. But first, I want to add one little detail to the shirt, and then you can feel free to add more details later on. So I'm going to come over here, zoom in, and take the Add Point tool and select my color for the skin color with the eyedropper tool. Just click on the neck to select that color. And then, of course, go back to the Add Point tool. And let's select the sharp corners for this particular step. Now, starting right about here on the body, I'm just going to click and then move down like this, and then up, and just release. And I'll take the paint bucket tool and try to fill this in. So now I'm just basically creating an opening in the shirt. And then if we want to, we can put the neck above the body in the Layers panel. So on our Layers panel, we'll just click and move the body up, or the neck up, excuse me, just like that above the body. And now we can take the Hide Edge tool, which we used for the nose, which is under our paint bucket tool, and just click to create the neck to appear like it's a part of this skin. And I can even move these in a little bit like that. So now your neck looks like it's a part of the body. Next, let's create the arms. We'll basically create two parts for the arms. They'll contain two different layers, and then the hand will be on a layer itself. So we'll click the new layer button and create a vector layer, and we'll name this arm 1, part 1, or you can name it sleeve if you wish. I will be creating a short sleeve shirt for this guy. So it just depends on how you're creating your object or your character. For now, I'll just name it arm 1, part 1. Now taking the eyedropper tool, let's make sure that we have the same shirt color for this. And then we will take the add point tool, deselect the sharp corners, and we can zoom in here to draw out our arm. So I'll start right about here, and I'll just draw up, adding some points. Kind of come down like this. I'll come over, and then I'll link it right there. So now we have the sleeve for this arm, and I can move my points a little bit just to get it so everything is lined up perfectly. Not perfectly, or I don't know if anything can ever be perfect, but pretty good. So once you have that, we can now make the second part of the arm. So we'll make a new layer and choose vector, and we'll name this arm 1, part 2. And we'll place this part below the first part. So just make sure that you have part 2 below part 1, or the sleeve is above the arm, if you want to think about it that way. Now taking the eyedropper tool, we'll select the skin color, and then taking the add points tool, and we can have auto weld and fill on, but let's make sure sharp corners is turned off. We can start right about here. We can intersect a little bit with the sleeve, and we'll just come down like this. About right there. And then we'll link that and just bring it up like this. And that's a really skinny arm. So I'm actually going to adjust my points here. So I'm going to just come in here and just make things a little bit bigger. Just like that. And he has a really small wrist. So I'll come in here and just adjust it like that. See, that's what's great about the add point tool, is you can just really get in there and just adjust things pretty close to where you want them to be after the fact of drawing it. Okay, that'll work out pretty good. So next, let's draw the hand, which I am really dreading because I am bad at drawing hands. I don't know what it is. They're the hardest thing for me to draw, but we'll see how it goes. So let's create a new vector layer, and we'll name this hand 1, and we'll place it above both parts of our arm that we created on the layer panel. So now we will take the add points tool. We should still have our colors and line width still selected from the eyedropper from before. And starting right about here, I'm going to create a closed fist. So we'll just bring it in like this. Come down like that. Yeah, I could have done better. But let's see if I can do a couple of adjustments here to make it a little bit better. See, when I record my tutorials, I can actually stop and attempt it a few times. But when it's live, it's a whole different ballgame. Okay, we'll just leave it like that for right now. I know it's not perfect, but it'll work out for just this demo purpose. And the best thing about this is you can always go back later on and tweak this for as long as you want to get the hand just perfect. So I'll do a couple things here. First, I'll take the hide edge tool and just hide that edge right there. And of course, you can take the line width tool, which is next to the hide edge tool on your toolbar, and you can taper these lines off if you wish, just to add a little bit more variety to what's going on here. And I'll take the translate layer tool and I can nudge this over like that so we don't have that line intersecting. Okay, so now the next part for the next arm, I find when I'm drawing in this style, which is the style I typically draw in, I find that most assets share many similarities. For instance, the eyes and the pupils are very similar. So really you can copy and paste them. Same with the eyebrows. I find that you can do the same for the most part with your arms and your legs. So what we'll do to save some time and just to expedite the process, I will copy these parts in the layer panel and move them over to the other side of the character. So to start, let's grab the top part of our arm, which is arm 1, part 1, and then come up here on your layers panel to the duplicate layer button, which is the second button in on the layers panel. And we can now rename this to arm 2, part 1. And we can move it below the body on the layers panel. Now taking the translate layer tool, which is in your layers, which is in the toolbox on the left under the layers section, it's similar to the translate points tool, but it allows you to move one layer at once without worrying about messing with any of the points. So take that, and then you can just nudge your sleeve over like this. And then we'll take the second part of the arm, for the first arm, and duplicate that layer. And we'll name this arm 2, part 2. And we'll move it down below part 1 here. And we'll just move that over with our translate layer tool. And then we can do the same for the hand. Now the hand isn't going to be identical because you have to think you're seeing the outside of the hand right now, and then you're going to see the inside of the hand when you are seeing this hand because it's just the way the character is positioned. But let's duplicate it for a reference for right now. And I'll move it above my 2 arm parts that I just duplicated, and I'll move it over like this. So now you would probably want to go into the hand here and do some alterations, like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get this right. It usually takes me a few times to get this right, but we'll we can adjust some of the knuckles here. And then you're going to want a thumb in there somewhere because you're seeing the inside of the hand, and if his hand is clenched, you're going to want thumb to come into play at some point. So if you took the add points tool, you'd want to somehow draw the thumb at this point right around here to create that the look that he's clenching his hand. But of course, that doesn't look all that well placed right now, but that's what you would have to do. And if we have time near the end here, I'll go back and fiddle with that. I just want to make sure we get through all this first, and then after that, I'll go back and do some polishing. But for right now, we'll just leave that the way it is. So finally, we'll do the legs. So let's go down here, and then we will make a new layer and choose vector. And we'll do the same as we did with the arms. There's going to be 2 parts of the legs. And the reason for this is we are setting this up so it's easy to animate next week when we are doing the bone animation portion. So let's name this leg 1, part 1. And we want to make sure that it's below the body. So we'll grab the add points tool. And I'm going to use the sharp corners option at the top here just so we can create some straight-looking legs. And I'm thinking he's going to be wearing jeans, and that's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm not going to really have rounded legs as much because those would be really tight jeans. So I'm going to make it look like he's wearing jeans that are, you know, relaxed fitting. So let's take the fill color from our style panel on the left here, or the right I should say, and we can move up and select a jean color or a pants color. In this case, I will choose a dark blue and click OK. So starting near the bottom here, we can just move down like this, over, and then up. We want the top portion to be a little bit wider than the bottom because that's going to be the knee right there that we're connecting right here. And we'll go like that. I want to increase the size of this, so I'll just take my scale points tool that's on the toolbar and just move this up a bit like that and nudge it like that. So the next step, let's create the second part of the leg. So we'll go to the vector layer and we'll name this leg 1, part 2, and we can move this below part 1. And now, taking the add point tool once again, we'll start right here and we'll just draw out like this. Again, we want to do a little bit wider on the bottom. Go like that, and go up like that, and just connect it. Okay, and looking at this, it looks pretty good. I can probably just nudge these in a little bit, or else he's going to be having some wicked bell bottoms going on here. So we'll do that. And now, let's go back to the first part of the leg that we just made, which is above the second part we just drew on the layers panel. We'll take the hide edge tool and just click to hide that edge. And you might have some stuff still seeping out here. And if that's the case, you can go back to the second part of the leg you just drew, click on it with your translate points tool, and just move that up a bit so it connects easier like that. And there you go. Now finally, let's draw the foot. We will create a new vector layer, name it foot, and we'll place it below all the leg parts that we've made. And in fact, we actually might want to name this foot 1, just so we can distinguish it from the second foot we'll be making soon. So all I did there was I just double-clicked on that layer to rename it, and I clicked OK. Now, taking the Add Point tool, turning sharp corners off, I will choose the fill color on the Style panel to be brown. I'll choose a brown color. Of course, there's different types of shoe colors out there that you can choose, but we'll click OK. And starting right about here, I'll just draw down like this and go over like so. And then I'll stop here. Now you could select the Sharp Corners tool for this portion I'm about to do, or what I find is easier sometimes is just to double click and then move, because then it creates a sharp edge just like that. It creates a straight edge, as you can see. And then all I can do then is just come up like this and go up like that. And I made the ankle pretty tiny. So all I'll do is just take the translate point tool and just nudge some of these things out like that to create this. Again, I love this add point tool because it just makes things so much easier when you're trying to adjust things. And then we can just nudge it up like that. Now for the final the final part, excuse me, is to draw out the other leg, which we can of course just copy and paste like we did before with the arm. So I'll start with the top part of the leg, which is the part 1, and click on the duplicate layer option on my layers panel, and make sure I name this leg 2, part 1, And I'll bring this below the foot so that we start like a new area here for our layers for the second leg. And I can just bring this over like that. And then for the second part, just duplicate that. And then it leg 2, part 2. And bring it down like that. And bring it over with our Translate Layered tool. And then for the foot, we duplicate that and bring it over like that. And looking at this, I'm still not happy with these stupid ankles. They look really awkward. So I'm going to just bring this out a little bit more. Bring my heel out a bit too. Oops, got some funky things going on here. There we go. I'll do that, and I'll do the same for this other foot. If you ever need to edit a layer that's behind one layer, you can always click on the eyeballs on the layer panel, which is on right here, as you can see by my foot. I just click that. It hides that layer. It doesn't get rid of it. And then I can come in here to this foot and adjust all this stuff right here and make sure this is all good to go. All right, there we go. That works better. Okay, so now if I look at my character, you can see that we have drawn up the character. My torso looks a little bit bigger than it probably should be looking at this compared to the legs. Unless I want to draw someone who is incredibly buff and huge at the top, we could probably do that. But you could always come in here with your scale tool. So let me select the body layer. And I can just highlight that entire thing by going to Edit, Select All once you're on that layer. And then I'll take the Scale Points tool and just kind of drag in and decrease the size of some of this stuff. And then I can just nudge it up. And then from there, you'll need to bring in, of course, your arms and legs. So I can just, what I can do actually is click on, let's say, for instance, leg 1, part 1, hold in the Shift button and click on the foot, and then grab my Translate Layer tool, and you'll see what that does is when you click and hold in Shift and click on something else, it highlights all of those layers at once, and then you can nudge things up. And this will become less of an issue once we create a bone layer, which we'll be doing in lesson 2 when we create the animation. Sometimes it's best to create a bone layer first, but I usually teach it like this first so that there's really no confusion when drawing out the character. You can focus solely on the character and not have to worry about anything else until we get to that point in the lesson. So go like that. And finally, if I were to have more time here, which I think we're running short on, what I would probably do is go in and do some more tweaking. For instance, you could come in here and add some buttons to the shirt. You could add a tie. You could add an overshirt, an undershirt. And you could do that very easily by drawing on that layer, or you could create new layers and draw over them if that's easier for you to do. And for me, it's actually easier to make new layers. If, let's say, for instance, if I want to draw a tie on this guy, you would probably make a new layer, at least that's what I would recommend, and then draw that out. Other things I'd probably want to adjust here is this hand. I would need to spend probably a good 20 minutes tweaking my hand because I'm so bad at drawing hands on the fly. But you'd probably want to make some more details with the knuckles and all that kind of stuff, and probably move these down like this so they're not overlapping your thumb. And just do some adjustments like that. And you'll probably know you have your own artistic vision of how you want your character to look. And you can really do all of that in Anime Studio. It makes it really easy to do. So I would advise that for now, once you've finished drawing your character, that you go ahead and do some tweaks over the next week while we are on break until the next lesson. And then I'm actually going to do the same. The next time you see this lesson, I'll probably have some different aspects to this character created. But of course, given time, we kind of need to wrap it up. But anyway, one more thing I'd like you to do is before the next lesson, try to draw another character on your own, completely just from scratch, so that we can use that character along with this character in the next animation. And with that, I believe I am done, and we can now take questions if you guys wish.
Thank you very much, Chad. I have a few questions that have been asked in the Q&A section. For those of you who are participating in the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A area to ask questions. We'll field the few questions that have been listed there as of now, and then hopefully you'll have a few minutes to answer those. So the first question is, can you re-explain how to select the torso again?
Yes, I can do that. So if any time you ever need to resize a torso, or any object actually, all you have to do is find the layer that you drew that object on. So for instance, for the body or the torso, you'll want to click on the body or torso layer on the layers panel, just like I did right now. And if you want to select the entire thing once in that layer so that you can resize the entire thing, all you have to do then is go up to Edit, Select All. And you'll notice when I do that, all the points on the torso become red. That means that all those points are selected, which then means you can take the Translate Points tool and move that around, or you can, of course, resize and adjust and so on. As opposed to if, let's say, you didn't do that, and then you tried to resize, you can, of course, as you see, I'm trying to select the Scale Points tool. It's not doing anything. And if you just grab points and you try to move it, you'll see that it's adjusting just that point. So that's what I meant by when you select the torso.
Okay, the second question here is, when you turn off autofill on a layer, does that only apply to that layer or all layers?
When you turn off autofill, that essentially means, what it basically means is when you are drawing out an object, and let me just demonstrate by making a new layer just to practice. It only applies to that object that you're drawing at that point. So let's say you have autofill off, and you are drawing an object, and you close it, it doesn't automatically fill in. But now, if I choose autofill again, and now I draw something out, it autofills it. So it only depends at that moment if you have autofill on and off. And there's just sometimes advantages to having the autofill off and using the paint bucket just to wait until you've done some design choices before you fill it in. At least that's how I see it. So that's why I was turning it on and off as we were going along in this series. So.
The next question, Chad, is please demonstrate how you rapidly switch between sharp corners and non-sharp corners while drawing with the points tool.
Oh, yes. That's just a little trick I use. And you probably saw down there when I was working on the feet, I had those 2 points really close together. So it's sometimes maybe not the best way if you're adjusting. You have to do those 2 points. But, yep, all you have to do, I have my sharp corners turned off. So let's say I'm drawing something round, and I want to come down here and draw a sharp corner going this way. All I have to do is double-click to add 2 points close together. You probably didn't see me do it, but I just double-clicked. And then when I move, you'll see now that it's a sharp corner. And if we zoom in here, it's really hard to tell, but the 2 points are basically overlapped on each other at that point. And so it's just a method I use, especially when I'm like teaching these things, just to really quickly, you know, get this straight edge going. That's the method I use.
The next question is, can I import an image as an object in Anime Studio?
Yes, you can absolutely do that. I'm not sure if I have any images available to show, but all you have to do is go to File, and then Import, and then once you're at Import, you can go to Image right there. Sorry, I was like looking for it. So File, Import, Image, and then when you click that, oh, actually I do have some images right here. You can just browse for an image of your choice, and then you can double click to bring it in. And this is just an image I actually drew in Anime Studio. And it's right there. And what happens then is you'll look on your layers panel. You now have an image layer situated right there. And you don't have as many options with this when you double click and go into some of the layer settings, which I didn't even get into really. You have limited options, like you can't really do much with it beyond just having it there, zooming in and out on it and enlarging it and moving it around. But yes, you can definitely bring images into Anime Studio.
And I'd like to add there is a trace image option as well in Anime Studio where it will convert your images into vector style layers. So it will put a bunch of points on the actual image. It's
right here. Actually.
The result is black and white in debut, and the result is color in the pro version.
Yep, I see it right here. So yeah, you can just go in. I just went to Edit, Trace Image, and then you can go in. You can adjust the number of colors, and you can play. You would have to play around with this for some time. But once you get all that and click OK, you can see now it reduces it to a bunch of points, and then you can go in and play around with that however you see fit.
Perfect. Another question is, how do you erase a point?
How do you erase a point? Very good question. I'm going to just delete that layer. And if you ever want to delete a layer, you just click on the layer and use the trash can icon. All you have to do to delete a point is you take your Translate Points tool, and you click on a point, and you hit delete on your keyboard, rather. You just hit the delete key on your keyboard. Now this can sometimes cause some issues, like for instance, if I'm doing it, let's say on the head, and I want this point for whatever reason, I hit delete. You can see that it'll skew some things, and you have to probably readjust. But and it might sometimes break a fill as well, depending on what you're doing. But that's all you have to do, is just click and then hit your delete key.
Okay, how do you draw nostrils?
How do you draw nostrils? Well, there's some different things you could probably do here. For instance, we could come in and, let's see, I guess it depends on the type of nose that you're drawing, but if you wanted to maybe add some points right here, maybe like with our Add Point tool, add a couple of points, or 3 points, and then you could just maybe go like that. Looks like kind of like a nostril. And you could also, go in and do some other details too. I mean, I guess depending on what you do, you could even use the shape tool, and draw out a circle like that. Kind of looks like Stimpy's nostril from Ren and Stimpy. But there's many different things you could do with that. Those are just some examples. So,
could you please show us how to create a multiple color gradient?
Yes, absolutely. So let's say I wanted to apply a gradient to the hair. First, what you'd probably want to do is you want to select the Select Shape tool. It's under your Fill option on the left toolbar. And make sure, of course, you're on your hair layer. And then you select the hair. And this will select the fill and the line and all that. Now, on your Style panel, you have an Effect area with a drop-down menu. From there, you'll see there is Gradient. So choose that. And from here, you now have all different types you can choose. You have linear, which is just from right to left, radial, which goes from the center outward, and you have a couple others like reflection and angle and so on. But anyway, what you can do is I'll just choose radial, and you have, of course, you can place your colors down here. So I'll double click on the white color and choose, let's say, a lighter orange, and then double click on the black to choose kind of a darker red, like that. And you can also add more points if you want, just by clicking in, and you can add, basically multiple different colors. But once you've done that, you click OK, and you'll see now that we have a line that has appeared. By still using the Shape Select tool, we can increase the size of the gradient as well as the position. So this is dictating where the center is. This is showing how far you want the center to spread out. It's a little bit hard to tell what's going on right now because I have it selected. But if I just render this out, you can see there that I have the gradient come into play. And of course, if I wanted it up higher, I could just do that, render out, and you can see that it goes up higher. So that's pretty much how you would do a gradient.
Thank you. There's a few more questions. We've reached our 11 o'clock or our 1 hour time limit, but we'll answer the next few questions. Okay. The question is, when is it a good idea to move a layer, and when is it best to move the shapes on a layer?
I think it kind of comes down to personal preference in some cases. Sometimes I want to move the points, sometimes I want to move the layer. In the case of when I adjusted the body and I wanted to move the layers, I found it easier to move the layers because I had points spread across 3 layers for the arm part, the arm top, arm bottom, and hand. So it was easier for me just to come over here on my layers panel and highlight all that, and then take the translate layer tool and just move it like that. Sometimes though, if you're just making a quick adjustment, I sometimes use the translate points tool. The other thing with the translate points tool too is you'll notice that I have a crosshair right here. By moving your points with the translate points tool, you're moving that object away from the center of the layer, which doesn't really bug me as much, but it does bug some people, especially if they're resizing layers, because as an example, if I use the scale layer tool, you'll notice that it doesn't go from the center. It's being dictated by that crosshair up there, how it's being resized, if that makes any sense. You can see it's being blown out this way and not just going from the center out. And so that bugs some people, and some people like to do things certain ways. So I guess it really just kind of depends on your personal preference, what's easier for you at that given moment. As far as selecting a huge thing with a bunch of points, maybe you want to just grab the layer. If just a little object, you might just want to do the points. I think it just depends on the situation.
Okay, just a couple more questions here. Can you work on multiple characters at once, sharing eyes, arms, legs, etc.?
Yes, definitely. What you can do, you could just do the copy-paste method like I was showing, but Anime Studio also has a library that you can click on right here. And what you can really do here is essentially, and I can show this, I'll probably be showing this actually in future lessons as well. You can save assets into the library, and then you can bring those assets forward at any time. So let's say, for instance, you wanted to save the eyes. All you would have to do is just save them into the library, and then you can bring them forth later on. You can save entire characters. You can save actions of characters, which is what I was going to show you guys in the next lesson, how to use the library there and all that kind of stuff. So there are, yes, the answer to the question is yes. And I'll probably be expanding upon that in the next lesson since we're kind of short on time. So.
Excellent. So one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. The question is, can you use an image and trace over it in order to create an animated character?
Yes. What I'll do here, actually, I'm just going to make a new, actually no, I will hide everything here really quick. And if you want to hide everything on your layers panel, all you have to do is hold an Alt on your keyboard and just click. Pretty much can hide everything like that. What I'll do really quick is just import an image into Anime Studio. So go import, and I'll bring the image in, and like that. What you can actually, sorry, I did that wrong. I apologize. I was thinking wrong. What you do is you go to File, Import, Tracing Image. That's what you want to do. So tracing image, and then you grab the image, and then you'll notice that it's transparent in a way. And from there, it doesn't have a layer on the timeline, or the layers panel, I should say, at all. it's just basically in the background. So from there you can make a new layer, and you can just take your add point tool or whatever you want, and just you can go to town and start tracing. And that's all you have to do.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chad.
Thank you.
I will ask Amici to pass the ball back to me. Here we go. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this webinar, the first in the series of 4. This was recorded and will be posted on our website at my.smithmicro.com/webinars, the link that you see up there. You can also check the webinars page for upcoming webinars, or follow us on Facebook or Twitter to get more announcements. Please also check out our website at anime.smithmicro.com as well. And this webinar series is just a taste of a series Chad has created called Steve and Alien. This series goes into depth on how to create an animation project in Anime Studio and provides close to 11.5 hours of training. So more information can be found on his website at incredibletutorials.com. I definitely recommend you check that out. We appreciate your time. We wanted to thank Chad again for taking an hour out of his busy schedule to do this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.